Hi everybody, it's Nikki again. I'm here to do another video that's personal experience, not to be used as medical advice. In fact, this is part 3 of the Tandem T-Slim X2 with Basal-IQ and Mini-Med 670G manual mode smart guard with low management features comparison, which is my own thoughts and opinions and everything on these two pumps. And I will say I'm going to provide in the description a link, because I'm going to go ahead and make these I have already made these Google Doc, a Google Doc. So this will be available in case you really want to go back and read it. Okay, anyway. So here we are. I left off with the 670G manual mode smart guard suspends versus T-Slim X2 Basal-IQ suspends. This is a look at the two pumps and their respective suspend algorithms. Generally speaking, the main goal of both pumps is to help us avoid hypoglycemia by reducing the severity and or the frequency of episodes. They're both going to use their own algorithm to determine at what point upon our approaching a low, the pump should suspend insulin and then when to resume again. Here is a look. So in this next section, and maybe in this video, we'll see what I get to. Here is a look at the similarities and differences in algorithm and the user's ability to manipulate that as far as settings go. Overrides and their consequences, function during temporary loss of sensor value, and the conditions under which each algorithm will resume basal and the potential effects of that duration. I have no idea what I just said either. Those are my words, and I don't even know what I just said. But I'll start with the algorithm. Fair enough. Okay, so basically these are two vastly different algorithms. So same premise, both pumps are going to suspend as you're approaching a low, but the way that looks on these two pumps is really different. According to the T-Slim X2 insulin pump user guide, the X2 uses the CGM sensor readings to stop and resume insulin using a combination of the current sensor value, a 30-minute predicted value, and predominantly with use of the following two rules. So basically this one it's both, and they're both going at all times. It's not only using what your current sensor value is, but it's also using your predicted sensor value. That's important because when you get over to the 670G, when you start talking about its settings and the fact that you can manipulate the settings, you still can only choose one or the other. So either you can choose the predicted value, where it's going to suspend based on a predicted value, or you can choose that it's going to suspend upon arriving at a certain value. But the T-Slim, where you cannot change the settings, it's just it applies these two rules to everybody. It's got it all covered. Which means, what it really means is that these suspends go in and out all the time. I like it. That's what I'm trying to say. I like it. Okay. There are 4 rules under the T-Slim X2 Basal-IQ right up in their book. 2 of these rules are hard to follow. What I think is that they're kind of catch-all. I think that they are what helps the pump continue to suspend during in-between times. But there are 2 that really seem to be the most critical and the easiest to spot. The first one is the insulin delivery is suspended if the 30-minute predicted value is less than 80 mg/dL, milligrams per deciliter. Probably should look that up before I started the video. Okay, so basically, if you're if you're going to be below 80 in less than 30 minutes, the pump is going to suspend. Again, these are set. You cannot adjust these. And the second one is the basal insulin is resumed once the current CGM sensor reading increases compared to the previous reading once a new value is higher than the previous one. So if I am at, let's say I've been suspended and my blood sugar, my sensor is showing a 66, and then my next one shows a 67, the insulin is resumed. Period, end of story. I know this kind of upsets some people because they go, oh my goodness, I was a 67, why is it giving me insulin? But what it's doing is it's predicting that you are on the rise again. And for myself, I do need insulin because if that's showing a 67, first of all, I might already be at 80, right? That's the lag part. But it means that I'm beginning to rise. So it is time for me to get my insulin. This is where I said it's nice that that they work together with your predicted as well as current sensor value. Because if the next value then turns around and drops back to a 64, then it suspends again. So it can suspend for 5 minutes and then resume, and it can do that for up to 2 hours. I mean, like it can, it's got really good range. So I like that. Again, I like that. Oh, and I will say in here, in the T-Slim X2's case, the BG predicted value is a simple linear regression based on 3 of the last 4 consecutive CGM readings. No other data input is used. For the 670G manual mode, so much like the T-Slim, it's designed to have insulin delivery suspended when you are either approaching or have reached your low limit. That's the overlap. They are both designed to suspend insulin at their respective low limit values. However, as I said, that value is set in stone with the T-Slim. On the 670G, it's not. So you have some control over these settings. All right, so let's look at what the settings are. Okay, so for the biggest thing you have that you can decide is, do you want your pump to suspend before low or on low? If you decide to suspend before low, that means that within that predicted, probably 30 minutes. So they both do 30 minutes. If you are going to be below your low limit within 30 minutes, then it's going to go ahead and suspend. So you can decide, do you want to suspend before? You can decide, do you want to suspend on? So like upon arrival. And then you can also choose your low limit. And I think they let you choose anywhere from 50 to 90. I don't know if that's, I'm not positive about that, but I think you can choose between 50 and 90. So obviously the lower you go, the less aggressive the pump is going to be in helping to prevent that hypoglycemia. The higher you are, the more aggressive it's going to be. So if I say I wanted to suspend before low at 90, that's got to work for somebody, I'm sure. And for me, it would be a disaster. I know that the least aggressive, and this was the only way I could get it to work at all, was to suspend on low at 50. And that's because I was trying to avoid the suspends, but I liked having it there as that last ditch, in case something had happened and I wasn't responding. I did like the idea that it would suspend once I hit 50, but I did not really like the preemptive suspends because they had a tendency to run me too high. Anyway, so those are the two, pumps for the algorithms. Okay, so with suspend before low, the way it works is your SG value is at or within, is this if you choose 70? I'm not going to bother saying all this because I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time reading it. I can't remember if this is, I think it's if you decide whatever your low is, if it's going to suspend before, then it means if you are predicted to be at or below that value within 30 minutes, it's going to suspend. That's suspend before low. Or if your SG is predicted to reach or fall below a level that is 20 points above your low limit within approximately 30 minutes. Yeah, I don't feel like figuring it out. Again, I'll just let you know that there are options. They are in the document, and they're definitely worth exploring. I think maybe the reason I don't feel like figuring it out is because I know that in the end, really what I wanted to be able to set was when my insulin resumed. That's what I really needed, and I couldn't. And I found that in general, that suspend on low at a 50 seemed to be what worked best for me, and anything before that was a little bit too preemptive, and it wasn't really a good fit, except for, and I should say this, overnight it did seem to have a different effect, and that was that if I set preemptive high, because I wasn't eating or doing anything overnight, I was just sleeping, a lot of times it would get me in and out of the suspend quicker. So that is all I have to say about suspend before low, suspend on low, and those are the adjustable settings. And there's stuff in there if you want to read more about it. Okay. okay, 10 minutes. I'll be back for overrides.